Welcome to the Rideshare Guy Podcast, where you will learn about the rideshare and mobility industry straight from Harry Campbell, who's got over 5 years experience covering the industry and has talked to thousands of drivers. There's no better place to stay up to date, entertained, and educated. So let's dive in.
So Larry Smith is a consumer attorney handling matters involving the Fair Credit Reporting Act, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Electronic Funds Transfer Act, as well as state consumer fraud and UDAP matters for over 18 years. He's the managing partner at SmithMarco PC, which he established in 2005. And over the past 5 years, his firm has worked with an ever-growing number of Uber and Lyft drivers and other gig workers, helping them resolve legal matters related to their background checks. So he's pretty much the perfect person to have on this podcast. And I think that I'm going to learn a lot, and we're also going to educate and inform a lot of gig workers today. So Larry, how are you doing? And thanks for coming on.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking to everybody.
Yeah. So I don't know what your nickname is, but is it the background check guy, or what do you like to think of yourself as when it comes to matters of the law?
You know, when it comes in our website's tagline is protecting consumer rights. And that's what we do. We're the people that protect consumer rights. That's what we do.
So I listed off a number of items that you guys help with. To be honest, I don't even know what the Electronic Funds Transfer Act is. I think I've heard of Fair Debt Collection, Credit Reporting Act, and obviously the background check issue, which we'll talk about specifically when it comes to Uber and Lyft drivers and other gig workers. But maybe give us a high level about SmithMarco PC. What does the firm that you founded in 2005 specialize in? What are you guys known for? And also, what do you enjoy working on the most too?
To be honest with you, we're a firm that we do mostly consumer rights, all consumer rights, but most of it is focused in the credit reporting and background reporting and big data field. That's what we like to focus on. So when we're dealing with big data companies and reporting false information or not maintaining privacy, those are the big areas of focus. Accuracy and privacy, the things that people care about and concern themselves with when it comes to these data companies housing a ton of information about us. So that's what it is. We love the credit report stuff, and we really love this background report stuff. There's nothing more rewarding than, when you get somebody that comes to you with I'm out of work. They turn me off. There's somebody else out there with my name that's done these terrible things. I didn't do it. I can't get to work. What do we do? I'm losing money. I'm bleeding here. There's nothing better than taking that case on because you know exactly what happened and how to fix it.
Well, I imagine too that a lot of times, it can feel like running into a brick wall. I'm very familiar with Uber and Lyft's customer service, but many big companies, let's be fair, are not known for excelling at customer service. And frankly, I think the more complex the issues can get, the more challenging they can be to resolve. So I sort of imagine that it's a really, I like a lot of the consumer sort of facing, areas of the law, or something where, you're sort of butting your head up against the wall, trying to get this credit report or something resolved. No one will talk to you. You can't get anyone on the phone. And then boom, you sort of go from that to having a lawyer on your side. It's kind of like a total 180. So I just think that's kind of a cool, option. And that's kind of really why I wanted to have you on and, learn more about what you guys do.
Thanks. It is kind of a niche thing. I mean, there's not a lot of lawyers that do it. And, every year we have these conventions where we get together, and I swear you could fit us all in a room. You can't fit all the lawyers on LaSalle Street in a room, but you could fit all the lawyers that handle the Fair Credit Reporting Act in one room pretty easily. So there's not a lot of us out there, and I like that as well. And I like having this unique, things that we do for people.
Yeah. Well, I actually, I'll be honest, I'm curious about a lot of the other services you offer, but in the interest of time, I think we're going to focus on the work that you've been doing around background checks and gig workers and Uber and Lyft drivers. And maybe I can sort of briefly set the scene and you can feel free to add on to it. But, in order for folks, so for those who don't know, in order to sign up to drive with Uber and Lyft, one of the requirements is that you pass a background check, right? And I believe Uber actually runs them through Checker, for example. And, it's, I think as long as you haven't murdered anyone recently, you usually pass. And, I think they also look at your driving report. I don't actually know all the details, but I know that in kind of the ideal situation, these things can move very quickly. It's really, not an issue. It seems like more when these issues do arise, it's like either really smooth sailing, or completely the opposite? There's nothing in between. Do you have anything else to add on sort of the high level of how background checks are involved in the process of getting gig workers on these platforms in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like you said, you can't open up the app with one, right? And
as a driver,
not just Uber. I think Lyft is using Checker now. All of them now. I mean, I've recently seen 5 different ones are using Checker. There's a few others as higher
gig companies.
What's that?
Gig companies are all using Checker, basically.
All the driving gig companies are using Checker. It seems there used to be a company called First Advantage Background Corp, and they've been around, and HireRight has been around. Those are a couple of the other big ones, but Checker has been doing all of them. And what we're really seeing is it's not so much Checker getting a report and giving it to Uber and saying, or Lyft and saying, here's what we got. It's more Checker doing the whole thing, making the decision. Like they're already told by Uber and Lyft, here's who we're hiring. Weed out these people. Don't even, just block them. Just call them a rejection. So actually Checker will be the one that makes the employment decision when it comes to the background. Checker decides whether you pass the background check or not.
Really?
And so it'll go through them. And when Checker says it's okay, then Uber finds out and your app gets turned on. And
so they're sort of playing a dual. So it sounds like Checker is sort of playing a dual role where they're actually running your background check and sort of, doing that piece, checking the things that they need to check, but then also making some sort of quasi employment decision too.
Certainly the employer is the one telling Checker what the parameters are. But Checker's the one that's ultimately, they're just skipping the step. They're just saying, hey, if you find it, you tell the person. Oh, really? You give them the report so they could look at it. You handle the dispute. So Checker kind of takes it and takes it all from there. And then they also, as you probably know, it's not just to get hired. They're checking you every year or even every couple of months now.
So is that a legal requirement that varies by the state? Because I feel like when I signed up to drive for Uber and Lyft 7 years ago, which was basically the wild, wild west. And they definitely were not checking, I think they did an initial check, but after that, I don't remember too many checks. And now, I just went out and gave a few rides for the first time since the pandemic hit. And I definitely had to run a background check. And it seems like you said, the frequency has vastly increased. What have you seen in your experience?
I've seen one person that was getting checked like 4 times a year for some reason. It just it was so random. It was so random. And then other people, it's once a year. But I think the reason why they're stepping up is because, as you said, it was the Wild West, and it's not a legal requirement for them to do a background check. It's just smart legally because they're on notice that some drivers have done bad things. Yeah. And so now they have to know that that's a predator. There's predators out there that will unfortunately use this great service to be predators. So they kind of have to do this for the safety of people, the safety of the customers, and their own to watch their own butts, because now they know there's dangerous people out there. But then there comes the requirements, legal requirements when they do. So there's no requirement to do a background check, but when you do, there are all these regulations that they have to follow, and we tend to catch them on that.
Got it. Yeah. I feel like, it's been a while since I reviewed the California Public Utilities Commission application to apply for a TNC, which is a transportation network company, which is what Uber and Lyft were. But I want to say at one point, there may have actually been a requirement that you had to do yearly background checks. I don't know if it's still in there. And I think is this typically a state by state issue? These background checks, they kind of vary state by state, like other things like insurance, and how some of these fields can be really complex just because every single state is different.
I think a lot of these companies are doing it based upon what their risk people are telling them. I think that's what it is. The more risk that there is, the more chance they're going to do a background check. Now, states can enact these laws. It's really peculiar because the Fair Credit Reporting Act preempts any state law, and it says, hey, states, you can't create laws that we've already created this law. Now, if you want to afford some other protections that we haven't already done with this Fair Credit Reporting Act, you may try. So states have come out and said things like, well, you can't do a background check if the person's making less than X amount of dollars a year. Or if you do a background check, we're going to say that you can't report a conviction over this many years if the job doesn't pay this much money. So there are parameters a state can put in there.
So let's talk about your work. It sounds like primarily you're helping out Uber and Lyft drivers. I know that there are a lot of gig workers out there, but who are the types of folks in the gig economy coming to you, and why?
They're the drivers, and they're coming for three reasons. There are three primary kinds of cases we see.
These are Uber and Lyft drivers primarily?
Yeah, Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash, and Postmates, and Uber Eats. All of them. I mean, we have handled somebody in each of those at this point. And
it is funny because Uber Eats, and Postmates are all now the same company, but operating as different brands.
That's right. That's what they do. And look, the average driver out there, they don't even know that, right? They just want the app. So there's three different kinds of things we see. Number one is the pure merged file. The pure, we got the wrong person. This person has the same name as somebody else, and that information is showing up in the report, and it's just an outright throwing them out. It's a terrible thing. The second kind of thing we see a lot of is not having an updated file. Maybe the person did get convicted, but it was expunged, or it was sealed, or something like that. So just not having an update to know that person was, whatever it was is now gone. So they looked at an old record. And then the third thing we see a lot of is just pure misreading a record. Like just, here's the record and the computer's just not reading it right. And it just grabs the wrong words and puts it on. And I saw that, two really interesting stories. I saw it once with a woman who had this just amazing, impeccable driving record. Yeah. She was a CDL. She did hazmat. She did everything. She never had a problem. She decided she was done driving trucks and wanted to drive, and not even people. She just wanted to drive and deliver food. She didn't want people in the car. It went and read her license information wrong. All she did was just not renew her hazmat, not renew her CDL. Just said, I'm done. Yeah. And the way it read was needs to renew. It is expired, and it's all got. And they're like, but that's not what it was. Another one I saw was a person that was being tried for a crime. I can't recall what it was, but he was found not guilty. Okay. Yeah. He fought it. Found not guilty. You win, right? Yeah. It showed up on the report as a guilty. Huh. How'd that happen? I pulled the public record myself, and there was this mistake the way it was typed up. It said guilty, then it said not guilty. Then under that it said that he's, removed and relieved of all of his, pre-trial requirement. He's off of parole. He's off of, it just said no fine, but all it saw was the guilty thing on top and just stopped right there. So that's another way we see problems, is just plain old misreading the record and putting it on the report the wrong way. Each one of these things causes the app to get shut off.
Yeah. Well, so are most of these drivers coming to you, are they brand new drivers, right? Because like we said, you have to run a background check to get onto the platform. And then a lot of jurisdictions are now doing annual or even, up to 4 times a year, it sounds like. So what's the breakdown? Is it about half and half, or what do you see?
No, I would say a good 75% of the new people. A good 75% are new applicants that are for the first time going in and having this. But there is, I'd say, another 25%. I have a good little chunk of people that have been in the job for a few years, and that's when it happened.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that good chunk of people because I've got some questions there. But let's start with the people that are brand new to the platform. I imagine, like the truck driver example you shared, that's a pretty common story. A lot of people quit truck driving and then decide, stay a little more local and drive some Uber and Lyft. So if in that scenario, they are basically, one of the 3 reasons, wrong name, not having the updated file, misreading of their background report, and, Uber and Lyft say they reject you. They say that you can't drive for us. What do they do? Because normally I feel like I get a lot of questions from these drivers, and I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on my own podcast, but I'm gonna. They're shit out of luck normally.
No, you're not. You're not at all. Come to me. Come call me, because
tell me what are drivers? Normally, what does a driver before they go and hire a lawyer? What do they do? What's your advice for them in that situation?
First things first. So the law says, and Uber and Checker, they all know this, that when the report comes out that has bad information on it, when this report comes out, but you can't just, besides just turning the person's app off, they have to actually give you a copy of the report. So you're going to get an email with, here's the report, here's what it is.
Got it.
And you have and it'll also say on that email what your rights are under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Now, just really quick aside, I know I said Fair Credit Reporting Act, just trust me, this stuff is covered by the Fair Credit Reporting Act. The law is misnamed. Background reports are covered under this law. So they will tell you what your rights are under this law. We can have more on that if you want to can talk about it, whatever. But
I think we're all right.
But they'll tell you what your rights are, and it's essentially to go ahead and dispute it and tell them. So you'll immediately, while you're on that, you could do it right there on the screen. You just tell them, you're wrong. This is not what it is.
And this would be with Checker?
Yeah, you would do it.
You're disputing with Checker.
And Checker, so Checker will get the information. And if there's anything else you could give them, if you have the record, if it's a sealed or expunged record and you have the order sealing or expunge it, get it over to them. If it's something like that, get it over to them. Whatever they have, they get, by law, they have 30 days to conduct an investigation and report back the results to you. And if they make a change, they won't just tell you they're making a change. They'll tell Uber or Lyft, hey, we've corrected this person's report. They're eligible again. And then you get noticed. You'll get notified. It's if they won't correct it, you're going to need me. But even if you're losing that time, even for that 30 days or 2 weeks or 1 week or however long it is that they're investigating it, you're losing money. And there is a reason why they're doing it wrong. There's a reason why they're doing it wrong. And they're not utilizing all reasonable procedures they should when they're making these reports. So that's why I say, if you get turned off for a false background report, I know you don't want to hear call a lawyer first. But yes, go right ahead and dispute it. But you have rights and you shouldn't give up on those right away.
Right. Well, and I think you put it in a good way, right? If you've got 30 days, or if they have 30 days to sort of look into this matter, that could be 30 more days than you have. I mean, you might need to make money right now today as a worker. And so I imagine that, for folks who experience an issue with their background check, I think one big mistake, or maybe, I wouldn't know if I would call it a mistake, but one thing that I see people doing is, they typically reach out to Uber and Lyft. And it seems like, we've kind of mentioned this a few times. It seems like Uber and Lyft really aren't the right people to reach out to if there are issues with background checks. Seems like a lot of the, sort of responsibility, or, if things are going to get fixed, it seems like Checker is the one that's going to fix this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like my one of the things I see every day in my work is that a lot of times something bad happens. And the knee-jerk reaction is to get really excited and uptight and nervous and just knee-jerk everything. And it's just not typical for a person to stop and read everything before them. You don't want to calm down and sit and read everything in front of you. But you do. I mean, you just have to just stop and just before you just start going, I'm calling my employer right away. Yeah. Look at it. I wish people would just stop and look at what they got. It would tell that it says right there.
I mean, I will say it does seem like a somewhat reasonable process. I mean, like I kind of joke that in the ideal scenario, you can get onboarded as an Uber driver in hours, right? All this stuff can happen really quickly. It's when things sort of hit the fan that there are issues. You highlighted a few of the things that can go wrong. And so I think that, even though if it is happening to you in the moment, right, and you're deactivated, right, for a false background report, you're going to be pretty pissed. But at the same time, the process seems reasonable. They have that you need to give them some time to investigate it and, kind of look into it, and hopefully they fix their error.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, if it is a wrong person case, a mixed file, what we call a mixed file, because they're mixing your file with somebody else, they fix those really fast.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, there's probably a lot of Larry Smiths out there, right?
How's this? I went to college with one and he was so much more famous than me, and so my phone would ring off the hook because a star basketball player in my school was named Larry Smith. So getting confused with somebody is something not alien to me. I get it. Okay. But I'll tell you, I find it funny that they correct that one really fast because that's usually the one thing that has the driver gets that one and goes, attempted murder. You're freaking out.
Yeah.
How did you put this on my report? Oh my God. And then, but they fixed that one overnight. Oh yeah, that was. And you just kind of sit and go, well, hold on a second. If you were able to figure out overnight that this was not that person, why couldn't you figure that out overnight when you were making the report in the first place? I mean, you got this information that said this person matches to an attempted murderer. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Just look at the name before we just, where did that happen? You know, this person lives in this state. The murder happened in that state. Wait a second. Do you have anything else that matches this person is living in that state for any period of time? I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Gender. You know, when you get arrested, you don't carry your social security card, right?
Yeah.
So they don't match you with social security cards. So when people say, well, how they have my social? Well, they don't have your social when you're getting arrested, you know, and people give fake names all the time, right? Yeah. But fingerprints, gender, that stuff is on a rap sheet.
Yeah.
That stuff is in the record. I had a guy get denied a job a few weeks ago. It wasn't a rideshare. It was something in a different area, like a warehouse. But he got denied a job because of a mismatched name. The guys were a different gender.
Yeah.
The bad guy was a white guy, and the guy applying for a job was an African-American guy. And he's like, it's not, you can even look at the pictures.
Yeah.
You can get a mugshot online pretty easily too. So the mistakes that are being made, in my mind, are pretty amazing. And that's why I say, you know, just call a lawyer, because they're just making these grave errors that's costing a lot of money.
Well, so let's put myself in the shoes of someone who just applied for a job driving with Uber or Lyft, not to pick on one company or the other, and I'm rejected, and I see that there's some error on my background check. What my next steps? How do you work with drivers in that situation?
So if they're calling me, I will make sure they're disputing, and if they're not, I'll walk them through it. And I'll help them make sure that they do it the right way. On
their own? You would help them dispute it on their own, basically?
They're going to have to communicate directly with Checker. Yeah. And it's going to work right on that computer screen or right on your phone screen, because that's how they've communicated with you. So I'm going to make sure that you did that, and I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to advise you to keep looking for work if you need other work. But then I'm also going to begin preparing a lawsuit against that background reporting company for falsifying your information. I mean, we're going to investigate and make sure we know what they did wrong. I'm not just going to, run the house with a lawsuit. But like I said, there are these three kinds of main errors, and we just really recognize them and understand how they work and are able to put a case together pretty easily for it.
Yeah. Well, and so, I know that obviously lawyers are not traditionally, the cheapest folks to hire. And so, I mean, I imagine that, there's certain cases, right, that are, I guess I wouldn't say more valuable to you, but I mean, if it's a 1-day delay, I don't know, can I afford to hire a lawyer for something like that? What's like your ideal case where it kind of benefits you the most, maybe benefits the driver, gets the most value out of it? And, like what are they going after? Like lost wages to me. I mean, I guess, I don't know if you just assume everyone's a full-time or part-time, but that can vary too, right? How does it all work?
So here's how it works. First of all, the best thing about this law is that it provides for the recovery of any actual damages that you suffer, plus attorney's fees and costs.
Got it.
I don't care how big your case is. I don't care if you're off of a day or if you're off a week or if you're off 2 months.
That is cool.
By the hour, according to the law, and I will
by
bill,
them.
I will bill by the hour. I will keep my bill, and they will have to. I have to negotiate it with them, or a judge will decide it. But that gets worked out, and then what we will do is we will sit and figure it out. What did you lose? What were you earning? How what did you expect to earn? What do people in that area earn? What do Uber puts that out there, and Lyft put that out there in their ads that you could earn this much money in your area. So,
and they tend to err on the high side, which probably helps you in these cases.
If they tell you that, then that's what you could expect to make, right? So we use that too, and we just try to figure out what our clients' damages are. And depending again on the case, there are those cases that if you're mistaken for a sexual predator and it's very embarrassing, there's a premium, right?
Got it.
Cover. But again, whatever you lose, whatever your losses are, you're entitled to.
So typically it's lost wages make up the bulk of the recovery.
Sometimes. Sometimes it does. But there's been times where somebody was off of work for all of 3-4 days. And so they didn't lose a lot of money. But what it was that was on the report was just really, wow. You had me mistaken for, I went home that night. I didn't sleep. Gross. And that could, again, buy itself a little premium. It's just one of those things that we look at it as a case-by-case basis. And we also have a nice history now to go back on. We've handled enough of these. We know the different kinds of losses. And so we can figure out what those, if we can't get a calculation to the dollar, we can get a nice number for that person. And again, our fees are what they are, however much time we have to put into it, they'll pay us. I don't care if it's how big or small it is.
Yeah. No, I actually, I'll be honest, I didn't even realize that your fees were covered by I guess, checker in this case, right? Because, and that's sort of why, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because I think there are a lot of these areas of consumer law that are actually very consumer friendly, right? I think personal injury is a good example. There's a lot of competition in this space for Uber and Lyft drivers, but if you do end up getting into an accident and find a good personal injury lawyer, man, they can really help you get the best doctors, the best care, the best, recovery. And I think that sometimes, I think personal injury, tends to have a bit more of a negative connotation in certain lights, right? But if you can find the right people, you can really help yourself as a driver and gig worker. And I think it's cool just to, I guess maybe it's a little of that David versus Goliath. I don't know what checker is valued at, but I'm going to look it up right now. And I'm assuming it's in the many, many billions, right? And here you are, some Uber and Lyft driver making, 10, 20, 30 bucks an hour, right? 2.2 billion. That was pretty close.
You kind of hit the nail on the head. That's like one of my favorite things about what I do. And kind of like, really, to be honest with you, when I set out to be a lawyer way back when, thinking about what it is I want to do, I've always felt like I wanted to help the person. I always wanted to help the person, the individual who has a problem. And I like to help them get up a hill. If they're facing a mountain in front of them, I want to show them, hey, I can get you up that mountain. It's real easy. Come on.
Yeah.
And I like to take on those big companies. And I like to say that every major bank, every credit reporting agency, all the major background companies, we've gone to battle with them all.
Yeah.
We've done just fine, if not fine.
I think I'm going to, I've got a couple more questions for you, but I feel like this could be an inspiring moment for anyone that's had an issue. So I'm just going to direct them to your website right now, protectingconsumerrights.com. And I think you can fill out a form there. Is that the best way to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Yes.
Cool. Well, I just feel like if I'm watching or listening and in this situation, it's like, I'm stopping what I'm doing. It's like, all right, Harry, Larry, shut up. I need to go fill this out. Get this guy to help me.
Get on there and tell me.
Because it is a pretty cool service you offer. So I guess I didn't realize too that it's really checker. I mean, again, I'm kind of picking on checker a little bit, but how does checker feel about this whole process? And like, what's your relationship with checker or even Uber and Lyft? I mean, are they kind of are Uber and Lyft really involved in this situation, or more you and checker and the driver?
No, we really haven't gone after them. And the truth is, there are requirements that the employers must adhere to when it comes to this. And sometimes they skimp on them a little bit.
Yeah.
But this person wants to work for that employer. So we don't want to initiate litigation against the person's employer. That's just not a good way to start off your relationship, right?
Fair.
So we're trying to, hey, only if you're never going to work for those people and they did something really wrong that caused you the loss of the job and damages, will we do something? But it's these background companies, and how do they feel about it? I don't know. They're not changing the way they do things necessarily. So obviously they think that it's just the cost of doing business, it seems.
Yeah.
Because they're still matching the same way they've always matched.
Yeah.
They've always used the same kinds of algorithms and matching criteria, and it doesn't seem to change.
Yeah.
So
and I actually, I think that's one thing that many big companies are guilty of, Checker, but even, I've kind of criticized Uber and Lyft a lot in the past because I do think that they look at drivers as numbers on a spreadsheet, right? They understand that, hey, we've got 1 million drivers. If 0.01% of them have issues with their background checks, and that's going to cost us, XYZ dollars to resolve, but we can replace that 0.01% of drivers for less, then that's what they do. And I feel like it's a very, like transactional way to think about it. And I think it really doesn't encompass the feelings, the emails that you've gotten and that I've gotten. Really why I wanted to have you on is because I just checked before you came on this interview, and I've gotten I've averaged one email per day from a driver who's had an issue with background check. And I think I forwarded them all to you, by the way. So you probably have at least 7 emails from me in the past 7 days. And, drivers, hey, I really need a job, or I've been working for Uber for 3 years. I have 15,000 rides. I'm 4.95 star rated driver. Boom, deactivated because of a false background check. And
somebody
it's just
claiming the mask. But there's other issues too, like customer complaints that really bother me.
Well, so you mentioned masks. What have you seen during COVID? Because has that changed in, more issues, less issues? What have you seen?
During COVID, we saw so few cases. I mean, there was, it was way, way, way down, way down. So we didn't see a lot at all. I did, you forwarded me some emails, and I do recall, there's a person or two that were getting deactivated because there's a complaint over not wearing their mask. That's unfortunate. That really is, because I don't know that really falls into the protections of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Only really a background report that has information that's false that's being used to deactivate you.
So most of or I guess all of the cases you have to take sort of have to fall under this background report issue. One other thing I wanted to touch on before we sign off here, we talked about the brand new folks to the platforms and also the ones who have been driving for a little bit and get subjected, I call it subjected, to an annual background check. What are some of the differences you've seen there? I guess one thing that stands out to me, it seems like you would have, I don't know if more solid, but if I've been working for Uber for a year and now I'm deactivated, right, because of a false background, that seems like a much bigger issue than if I'm not even working for them yet, right?
They're far angry.
Yeah.
To put it mildly,
100%.
The people that call me that have been working there for a year or 2 years and have passed background check, and then they're exasperated, they're angry. I mean, you get the other people are like, hey, this is just, wow, why is this going wrong? And you're like, okay, let me take.
But they never actually worked for them, right? So it's sort of they're not as invested.
And sometimes they're people that have never even been through a background check before, so they're just like, hey, this is wow, what happened here? But then you get the people that have been through it, and then they come back a year later and they get it, and they're just like, they're, how this happened, how come? And they want me to answer. How did I pass the first background?
Yeah.
How did I pass?
That's funny you mentioned that. I literally have gotten many questions. I've gotten many questions from drivers like, how did they not catch this the first time?
I don't know how they didn't catch it. I don't know how you got by. I don't know why. I just know why this happened now. I could just tell you why the bad report happened this time. I don't know why you passed.
So is there any difference in the cases for those folks that have, I think they're definitely angrier, but do they have a better case or more potential damages, or what have you seen for those that have been, already on the platform?
As far as, damages are damages, your harm is your harm. So whatever your time is, and however the calculation is, it is. It's just, it's an aspect of liability, you're going to prove that Checker did something negligently, and that's just another fun way of playing with it, right? It's like, well, what did you do the first time that you didn't do the second time, or what did you do the second time that you did the first? Why did these come out differently? One answer could be that the person who did commit the crime committed it within that past year.
Yeah.
That could be it. True story. Again, it wasn't a ride share, but I did once have a guy. This was brilliant. He's at the interview, and the background check comes in after the interview, and they say, sorry, this background check, and the crime that he was being rejected for, supposedly, he's still in jail for. Okay. So they run a report that says, yeah, this person committed this crime and he's currently serving 3 years in this prison.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm not.
Probably can't be me.
Obviously, it's not me. Did you even look at it and just kind of say, well, wait, we're giving a background report about, so it's just more just a level of the negligence, the level of how bad they were, that it just makes my case, I guess, easier to prove.
Yeah.
But that's not going to change my client's recovery. It's not going to change what we get. That's all about what the value of their case is based upon their loss.
Gotcha. Well, I think it's a really unique and cool and valuable service that you're offering to Uber and Lyft drivers and other gig workers. So really appreciate you doing what you do, coming on the podcast. And if folks are interested in your services or want to learn more, just maybe give us a quick summary again of who should reach out to you and how.
Anybody that has a background check with false information on it.
Got
and
it.
that you're being cut off of work, you should reach out to us at our website is protectingconsumerrights.com. We're called SmithMarco. You can get SmithMarco.com. You can call our number 888-822-1777. You'll reach us. You obviously see I'm very passionate about it. I get really, when I start talking about the stories, I get really riled up because that's what I sit and do. I sit and listen to people's stories and then get ready to fight.
Cool.
So I really appreciate the chance to get like an outlet for me today.
Yeah, well, no, I think that I appreciate you coming on, and I kind of selfishly I always mention that it's good for me to find great resources for drivers and gig workers out there, because then when they come to me with their problems and I can't do much a whole lot about them, I can send them your way and we can sort of tag team it. So I'll leave links in the show notes and the phone number and all that if folks want to reach out and learn a little bit more. And otherwise, really appreciate it, Larry. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.